Hey guys, welcome to Dem DMs. My name is Fox Ghost.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Panda Ghost.
And today we will be talking about a comparison of 3.5 and 5e. So if everyone's ready, let's slide on in.
3.5, it gets a bad rap for a lot of very real reasons. The modifiers that you had to keep track of as a player.
Yeah, I heard you like math, so here's math on your math.
Yeah, it was one of those. It's the typical used to be the image of D&D where I saw a comic once where Death plays a game with a person to see if they can stay alive or not, and okay, what game do you want to play? And the player pulls out a thing of D&D, and it on the next panel it says 10 years later, and he's like, oh god, he's pulling out another book. It was one of those games where it was just super expansive, super customizable, but the modifiers and all the math that you had to keep track of really was a high barrier of entry for that edition.
Mm-hmm.
But in some retrospects, it also was a little bit more specific in terms of the rules, which, as we'll probably go into, is a good thing. It does slow down the game, especially in combat, but it makes logical sense for some of the rules that they had that are no longer around. And that's, I think the main comparison between 3.5 to 5th edition is 3.5 had a rule for everything. Every specific instance that you could get into, there was probably a rule that was related to it, or a close enough rule that a DM could adjudicate appropriately. 5th edition is very simple, which is a good thing for speed in terms of the game, but is very generic in terms of the rules, and sometimes it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what this means, and I feel like when it's a little bit more open-ended, you can get into some of those groups where players really attempt to fight with the DM in terms of what the DM's ruling is, because they're like, well, technically it doesn't say that. And it's like, okay, but I'm the DM, it does in my world. You know what I mean?
Right.
0.5 had a little bit about that too, where people spend 30 minutes paging through a book to find the one rule that agreed with them. But it was a little bit more specific, which helped in certain circumstances.
Right.
I know, going back to my first encounter, if you were X number of feet off the ground, I don't remember what the elevation was. Are you
talking about the modifier for attack?
Yeah, so modifier for elevation.
5 feet. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like 10.
No, if you're up 5 feet on top of your enemy that you're swinging down at, you get a +5, and they get a minus to hit you, which was a nightmare when you were on stairs.
Yeah,
because everybody's at a different freaking elevation.
Had an impact on the gameplay. Now you might get away with that if you're at say you have a bow or crossbow now, where you're at a higher elevation. Maybe your DM might grant you advantage or something. Back then, it was your X number of feet up, you got +2 or whatever to your roll to hit.
Roll to hit. Yeah, but it will also, the problem really came in when it wasn't just that, when it was like, and you're also doing this, so you get like a minus to that, and then you also get a plus from this, and your magic item gives you a minus to that, or a plus to this, and you had to do all that math to get the bonus that you were adding to your roll, and usually your roll was almost insignificant to what your modifier was. Especially for, as we'll get into probably, especially for rogues with skills. A rogue, at high enough level rogue, you are basically, if you roll a 2, you're at a 39 for stealth.
I mean, to be fair, rogues are still kind of like that in 5e. But,
Sure.
So that actually brings me to one of the biggest changes for my gameplay, for how I like to play the game from 3.5 to 5e, is skills and the omission of skill ranks. And cross-class skills, untrained skills, or skills that required special training. So 3.5. Let's take the Arcana skill for example. Back then, knowledges were broken down into the different knowledges, like Arcana. No, I'm thinking of Use Magic Device. That's what it was. There was the Use Magic Device skill. And only certain classes were able to learn that skill. So let's compare it to the Arcana from 5e. If you're a barbarian, you could still try and make an Arcana check. You're probably not going to be good at it, but you could still attempt it. In 3.5, what's that?
I said you can still get that nat 20.
True, yeah, you could always get that nat 20. Well, which in skills is not auto success, but it may be enough. In 3.5, unless you were a rogue or a couple other classes, I don't remember, you could not use the skill Use Magic Device. And that was to activate things like scrolls, wands.
The wizard had it too.
The wizard had it too, that's right.
Yeah, for Use Magic Device, it was one of those skills where if you didn't succeed on it, there was a very real chance that you could destroy the magic item.
Yep.
Like it wasn't that it just didn't work, it was also that no one else could use it then.
Right.
So it was a little bit more
risky.
Which goes into a lot more with 3.5. Yeah, it was a little bit more risk involved. There was a lot more in 3.5, like, we call them save or die things, right? Where, you on a single roll could wipe out an item, could wipe out yourself, depending on the save, and that's not really around in 5th edition. 5th edition, I feel like, is very much more geared to the players succeeding, or it wants them to succeed, which is fair, but also you want the moments of failure to elevate the ones where you succeed.
Let's transition over to feats, because that's also a huge change.
Yeah, big change, because we talk about all the books for 3.5. There were so many feats that you could take.
Right,
which made your characters,
trees.
Paths that you had to take, to get other feats, and it was so customizable per character, because you had all these things that you could, like, no two fighters were the same. They all took different feats.
Well, I think that's
specific,
and a lot of that is because every third level, no matter what class you were, you got a feat.
Yeah, it was separate from ASIs.
Yeah, so every third level, no matter what you were, you got a feat. And every fourth level, you got an ASI, no matter what. And that was based off your total level, not your character, or not your class level.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Right.
So
and if you also all got one at first, no matter what race you were.
You got one at first, and then third, sixth, ninth. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. At first level,
and then humans got another one.
Yeah. So at first level, as a human fighter, you would have 3 feats right off the bat.
Right, because fighters basically got nothing. You got no special things with your class. All you did is almost every other level, you got a new feat.
It's like it was almost like the warlock of its day. Mix and match, pick your character creator kind of.
But the difference is those feats were specifically listed in the feat category as these are ones that you can take with those added fighter.
Right.
And so, like, it was a little bit more restrictive than, now fighters get an ASI a lot more often than other characters, but they are open to take whatever they want, for a possible feat, if that is what they want to do. Which, that's the biggest joke about 5th edition, is that, feats are variant rules. Who goes without that? You know what I mean? Like, I've yet to meet a group that does that.
I think that's the one criticism I do have about 5e, is the feats really enhance the flavor of your character. the subclasses are great for, for choosing which
Specializing.
variant of a class you want, but I think what makes a character its own is pretty much directly tied to what feats they decide to take, if any. And I find if you don't take feats, if you only just take ASIs, you're left with a really boring character sometimes. Depending, but that also kind of depends on the subclass as well.
True. Yeah. I mean, a champion fighter, which I think everyone here can agree is the most boring class-subclass combination in 5th edition. That, if it was able... Because they're able to take so many feats, they could take the actor feat for a little bit of, role-play flavor to them. They could take a bunch of different things. But the problem, I think, right now with 5th edition that we're seeing is a very small list, especially compared to 3.5, of possible feats. You only have so many that you can take, and some of them you wouldn't use. If you're a fighter using heavy armor, why would you ever take any of the immediate armor ones or the charger? There were so many ones specific to... I feel like rogues actually probably benefit the most from the options in terms of feats. I feel like they have probably the most versatility, I would say. But, that's, I think, what, and that and the now all the feats that you used to have to take 3 feats to get a certain benefit is 1 feat now that you can take at first level.
Two weapon fighting was a nightmare in 3.5.
Yeah, what was it, 5 or 6 feats to get what you can now do as a
so the whole tree was 5 feats. But the bare minimum you need 3 of those or something like that, maybe 2. I don't remember.
Yeah, because I feel like that was back when if you had 2-weapon fighting.
There's 2-weapon fighting, 2-weapon defense, improved 2-weapon fighting, and improved 2-weapon defense, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
but it was something where you get a -2.
Well, you always both.
You started off with a -8, I think.
-8, -8.
If you're using 2 non-light weapons, it was -8, -8. Then it went down to
-4, -2, I think, or at some point you were at a varied.
Yeah,
height,
it wasn't always even, right? All I know is that at the very end, it would still be -2, -2 if you're using 2 light weapons, or -4, -4 if you're using 2 non-light weapons.
And if you're, especially if you're Panda Ghost over here who likes to dual wield bastard swords.
Okay, no. So here's the breakdown. So I anticipated we'd forget a lot of the 3.5 stuff, so I have a website that had a lot of the 3.5 rules up. So, with no feats or anything, and you had 2 non-light weapons, it was a -6 to your primary attack, and -10 to your offhand.
Oof.
If your offhand weapon was light, it was a -4 and -8. If you had the 2-weapon fighting feat, and it was 2 non-light weapons, it was a -4, -4. If it was 2 light weapons, and you had the 2-weapon fighting feat, it was -2, -2.
And then what was improved 2-weapon fighting?
I don't remember. I think that just gave you...
Oh, was that adding your... I think your modif to your damage? Was that when that came in, possibly? Because I think improved weapon defense is what gave you the +1 to your AC.
Right.
If you were 2-weapon fighting. I think improved defense was, I think, a +2 or something. But again, this is 4 feats where the earliest you could do that as a human fighter, which is the most feats, was 2nd level, I think. Because it was...
I think so.
1 level from, 1st level feat, your human feat, your fighter feat, all at 1st level, and then you had a 2nd level.
No, so feat. Improved 2-weapon fighting allowed you to get if you had multi-attack, if you became at the point where you could take 2 attacks a turn, improved 2-weapon fighting allowed you to take a second attack with your offhand weapon.
Okay. So
and
you would still get your...
So the entire feat tree for 2-weapon fighting was 2-weapon fighting, 2-weapon defense, improved 2-weapon fighting, and then greater 2-weapon fighting. And if I were to guess, it allows you to take a third. Yeah, it says you can take a third offhand attack.
Okay. So you're always at that -2/-2. It's just a number of offhand attacks you can do, which at a high enough level for 6 attacks around, you know what I mean, or more.
So that was the other thing. Every character was able to take multiple attacks a turn. It all depended on what your base attack bonus was. So once you reach base attack bonus of +6, you got +1.
A second attack,
for your second attack. And then once you got then it was +11, +6, +1 for your third attack. Once you got to a certain level, and that was based off your class. We didn't have the proficiency bonus, which scales with your level. Your base attack bonus scaled specifically with your class. So that got weird when you decided to multi-class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm starting to remember why we switched over to 5e.
Well, so again, that's covering the feat side of things, which there's a lot more there that we could talk about for hours, but we're not going to.
We could do a whole episode of this podcast on 3.5.
Oh my god, yeah. And you know, I think my biggest gripe with 5th edition, I mean, there's several that I have, and we've talked about them ad nauseum. But one of the main ones is the frequency of opportunity attacks. So in 3.5, almost everything that you did in front of somebody else cost you an opportunity attack. Somebody would get a chance to hit you. Now, there were ways to get more than one opportunity attack around by taking a feat. There was a chance to bump up your armor class from attacks of opportunity by taking a feat. You know, there was all kinds of things that you could do, and there was also ways around still, like disengage in 5th edition, and there were ways to prevent that. But, you know, if a spellcaster was just in front of somebody and they cast a spell, the person that they're in front of gets an attack of opportunity on them. Now, if there were ways to mitigate that by casting defensively, or combat casting, rather, I should say, where you rolled the die, and if you succeeded, you didn't take an attack of opportunity, but if you failed, you still did. And then if you got hit while you were casting a spell from an attack of opportunity, that spell you'll have a chance to fail that spell, like even if it was just like a fireball that doesn't, in 5th edition, doesn't take concentration. And 3.5, as long as you were casting that spell and somebody hit you with attack of opportunity, you had to roll to see if that spell just fizzled. And which is really unfortunate round for spellcasters, because there was no bonus action at the time, so that was just your turn. It was done. You know, which is another, you know, big thing. You know, there was actually a whole chart of like the 15 things that you could do that provoked attacks of opportunity, and your DM had to keep track of that, which is why in 5th edition they shrunk that down to, if you leave your opponent's threat square, you get an attack of opportunity.
Thank you for watching the DemDMs podcast. We release a new video every Thursday. Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments down below. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, be sure to smite that like button, subscribe, and sneak attack that notification bell to ensure that you're up to date on all our new content.